Welcome to Season 4 of AIHA's podcast series, The Healthier Workplaces Show, where we explore timely and informative topics about occupational and environmental health and safety to help you improve your workplace. I'm your host, Alejandro Castillo. Today, I have the pleasure of speaking with industrial hygienist Kevin Mahoney. Kevin is an industrial hygienist for the Paulsboro Refinery. He has 14 years of experience in oil refining, marketing terminals, consulting, and construction management. Kevin has a bachelor's degree in occupational safety and environmental health from Millersville University of Pennsylvania, and a master's degree in safety sciences from Indiana University of Pennsylvania. On March 5th, Kevin presented a flame-resistant clothing assessment tool webinar, which discussed the lack of recognition of the need for flame-resistant clothing, leaving many workers without proper protection. Kevin believes it is important to correctly assess a workplace to determine the need for flame-resistant clothing. Today, we're here to talk about Kevin's career, gain more insight into his flame-resistant clothing assessment tool webinar, and his advice to the future generation of OEHS professionals. Kevin, thank you for joining us today.
Thank you for having me.
Let's get started. So let's start from the beginning. How did you discover industrial hygiene, and what made you become interested in this field?
Well, I really fell into it. I went to Millersville University, and I was undeclared going into my sophomore year, so I really had to pick a major. I was writing out my gen eds, and I was speaking with a few friends, and they were safety and health majors. So I decided to take a tour of the department, and Dr. Specht, who was one of the department leads at the time, took me to the different labs, showed me the fire lab, the industrial hygiene lab, and all the different courses that it entailed, and I fell in love with it. So I declared my major that day. He outlined the next 2 years of college, and it was all in the past. After the fact, I found out my grandfather was a safety manager at PICO. He was actually a safety manager before OSHA was established. He was a safety manager in the 60s, and it was really special to kind of share that with him.
Is there a moment in your career that particularly shaped your perspective as an industrial hygienist?
I think when you evaluate exposures, whether you're using a gas monitor or badges, and you find overexposure, and you take steps to prevent that from occurring, and you make people healthier, that really it's really satisfying in the long run. And in the refinery, we have our personal H2S monitors. People call them crickets. We wear them at all times, and if we're draining a piece of equipment or prepping a piece of equipment, they go off, and we exit the area. And when they do go off, we look at what happened and what can we do going forward to prevent it from happening again. Eventually, we have less activations in the long run if we take those correct measures. It's really satisfying seeing the less exposure over time and making those meaningful changes.
Absolutely. Keeping people healthy, safe is always crucial.
Mm-hmm.
In your field of work, you train, lead, and coach staff to integrate health, safety, and environmental initiatives into their workplaces. What have you discovered to be the best approach for encouraging people to follow through with the lessons you impart in your training?
I think the number one thing is to get them involved when you're making changes to policies or procedures, and when you're developing the training. When they're involved, they can give you valuable input, no matter what their position is. If the policy affects them, they're going to have something to say about it. So when they look at the procedure, the training, and they make those subtle changes, it really helps make a really good policy and solid training. And then when you're delivering the training for new hires who just came on site, when you explain why they're in place, what could happen if we don't follow certain procedures or wear certain PPE, it really helps them understand why that's very important.
Are there any challenges with implementing these practices? Any challenges involving potentially communication?
Oh, absolutely. At the refinery, we have what we call safety training or safety day, and we train all of the employees within the refinery. So if we have a big change we're going to implement, we communicate that during our safety training. We have 4 shifts, so this training might take place over 4 weeks to get all 4 shifts. And that's where we can really talk to everyone, deliver the training, and make sure that everyone is on the same page. If we have minor tweaks to the program, we can deliver computer-based training, but that might not be as effective as when there's a bigger change within the refinery or the facility.
So you recently presented a webinar called From Risk to Safety, Implementing the Flame-Resistant Clothing Assessment Tool. Can you tell the audience a bit more about what that webinar highlighted and how the tool can provide assistance to OEHS professionals?
So the webinar talked about a tool that was developed by a team of us back in 2021, maybe 2020, 2021. It included Cheryl Dubois, Curtis Hines, Georgie Popov, Allison Fletcher, and myself. So the tool is Excel-based, and it asks targeted questions to see if you really have exposure to flash fires and if FR clothing would be appropriate for a specific area or task. And it allows for consistency across all sites. So if you have a company where you have a lot of little sites, you can have different professionals do the evaluations and have consistent results, which is pretty important, especially if you travel from site to site. You don't want drastically different requirements for similar tasks. The webinar discussed how to use the tool, how to document those evaluations, and we also touched on how to inspect and perform maintenance on your FR to ensure that it's in working order.
Could you describe a couple of scenarios where a worker may benefit from fire-resistant clothing, from worst case to, of course, best case scenario?
If you work in a facility where you refine or process flammable liquids, you can be exposed to a flash fire. So FR clothing may be appropriate in those situations, depending on the quantities and what kind of operation that your company has. The worst case is there's a flash fire and your FR clothing will reduce the severity of the burns. And the best case scenario is you wear your FR clothing and nothing occurs and there's no flash fire. So more often than not, you'll wear your FR clothing and nothing will happen. But we're more worried about that off chance that there is a vapor release and catches on fire and you're in the middle of it. You need the FR clothing to protect your skin from severe burns. And the more you can reduce those burns, the better your chances of survival are, right? If you're wearing street clothes and you're engulfed in flames, if there's a flash fire, then your clothes can burn. But with the FR garment, it not only protects you from the fire, but it also doesn't burn after the flames have subsided. So a flash fire is generally considered a fire that lasts around 3 seconds. It might last a little less or a little more, depending on the situation. But the FR garment will protect your skin, and then it'll also give you a chance to escape that situation.
So on one hand, we have workers facing unnecessary risks due to lack of proper FR clothing. On the other hand, FR clothing costs money and may be uncomfortable for the workers. How do you find the right balance between safety and efficiency?
I think that's where the FR tool comes in. When you perform the evaluation, you can have a clear documentation that FR clothing is appropriate. I don't like to just throw people in PPE just to protect them when the hazard doesn't exist. If you're exposed to any type of chemical and your first instinct is to wear the highest level of protection, it might be more cumbersome and might harm you in the long run, right? FR clothing, it can probably won't happen, but it can be hot in the summertime. It's expensive, and we want to make sure that if we do suggest wearing FR clothing, that we have good data to back it up, and we have good evaluations, and that we're not just asking employees to wear the clothing when it's not needed.
And a little bit of a side note question, what type of FR clothing pieces are there?
So you can have, a lot of people know Nomex. It's a DuPont product. There's also treated Nomex or treated FR clothing, which is cotton or other material that's treated with a chemical, and the chemical has FR resistant properties. You might have a one piece or two piece, and then you can have a coat that goes over top of it. And then We also have FR raincoats. So if you are on a process unit which requires flame-resistant clothing, and it rains, and you put a raincoat on, you know that you're protected. If the outer layer is flammable or can melt, and there was a flash fire, it can create additional hazards. It could melt or continue to burn.
What did participants learn from this webinar? Are there any lessons that could be applied to other OHS topics?
Participants learned how to access the tool on the AIHA website, which is free of charge. Anyone can pull up the tool and download it. Just looking for apps and tools on the search bar. Learn how to perform a proper FR assessment at their workplace and the importance of performing the FR assessment. There's also other tools and apps that are located on the AIHA website, so I encourage everyone to go ahead on that website, look through the different available apps, such as IHMod and IHStat and other tools that are available to the professionals.
And since we're talking so much about resources, aside from the webinars, what other resources would you recommend to incoming OHS professionals?
I would say get involved with AIHA or ASSP. Both organizations are great. AIHA, they have national committees, which you can join. If you look on the website, there's a number of them. I'm involved in the Exposure Assessment Strategies Committee, the Protective Clothing Equipment Committee, and the Safety Committee. So you can go on the website, look at the different committees, and then request to join. They also have a number of publications that you can download. They have webinars. They have a whole bunch of information. If you join an organization, I also encourage early career professionals to link up with someone and get a mentor, whether it's formal or informal, someone that can kind of guide you through the do's and don'ts and how to bring the coursework to the field application.
How is being a student/early career professional different from when you first started?
I think the biggest difference is technology. Technology has advanced over the years. Even the publications, all my publications were physical books, and now they're digital. They're easier to access. You can access them on your phone. It's always at the tip of your fingers. It makes it a lot easier to find information. You just need to know where to look, right? So that's the big part of your education, right? It tells you where to find specific information and where to look it up. And when I first started, I had a flip phone, and now we all have our smartphones. And I can find information in the field now where I would have to go back to my office and look it up or crack open a book.
So what you're saying is it's much easier now to obtain information than back then?
Yes, but it might be information overload for some people. So with the positive also come negatives.
Absolutely. You got to find the right balance, of course.
Mm-hmm.
So Kevin, as we approach the end of this episode, is there anything else you would like to share with the audience?
I would say for the early career professionals, when you get out of school and go into the workforce, to look for a mentor, whether it's within your organization, with AIHA or any other organization you may join. Those mentors really guide you through your career and help you make good, solid decisions. And also, if you're asked a question when you're out in in the workforce and you don't know the answer, it's okay not to know. It's important to find the answer, tell them what the answer is, and then if you're asked that question again, you'll know it going forward. But it's okay not to know everything, especially when you're first starting off in your career.
That wraps up today's episode of the AIHA Healthy Workplaces show. Kevin, thank you so much for joining us today. To learn more, visit the AIHA website and follow us on social media. Thank you for tuning in, and as always, remember, the healthier workplaces mean a healthier world. Until next time.